final section of Loop 1 on the way back to the designated service point and compulsory 15-minute stop saw crews cross the R23 and R550 as the route meandered back to the flying finish adjacent to Carnival City on the R554.
There was a hint that a little drama was in the offing when body language inside the Century Racing CR3 suggested that Colin Matthews and Alan Smith were running into problems. A plume of dust up ahead also hinted that the Donaldson Prologue winners and early race leaders had been overtaken by Special Vehicle Championship leaders Cully and Quinton Sewald in the Elegant Fuel Bat. The fact that Matthews and Smith had lost the overall race lead was soon confirmed. The Sewalds drove into view ahead of the Century Racing pair, and there were ominous signs that the reigning South African champions would take control of matters.
There was to be quick confirmation that all was not well with the Century Racing crew and that their race was about to come to an end. The CR3 had run into gearbox problems and the body language inside the car said it all as Matthews and Smith slowly rolled to a halt. After winning the Adenco 400 in the Western Cape, the Century Racing pair had now racked up 5 non-finishes in a row in what has turned out to be a thoroughly disappointing season for the pair.
The demise of Matthews and Smith and problems for Herman and Richard Sewald in the Sewald Racing SVR elevated Brett Parker and VZ van Sail into second place in the special vehicle category. The Sizanani Plastics Jimco pair were being rewarded for a clean run. They had avoided trouble by staying on the track, and it was another impressive performance from the pair. Just behind Parker and Van Sail, the Team Castrol Toyota of Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin still led the production vehicle category, but as was the case earlier with Colin Matthews and Alan Smith, the Toyota crew appeared to be struggling. Problems for other crews had also seen Evan Hutchison and Megan Verlag work their way through the field in the Motorite Revo. There was quick confirmation that Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin were in trouble when Hutchison and Verlag steamed past the Team Castrol Toyota Hilux, which then pulled off to the side of the track with what was later diagnosed as fuel pressure problems.
The White brothers, David and Gary, had profited from the woes that befell other teams and had moved through the ranks in the Ruacon Racing Bat. They had avoided the hidden dangers along the route and were now running fourth among the special vehicles. Where the production vehicles were concerned, the retirement of Hannes Grobler and Henny Testecha and the problems for Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin had lifted Thomas Rundle and Joan Moore to the front of the field in the Baden Racing Nissan Navara. And then there was drama.
The Atlas Copco Toyota of Gary Bertholdt and Andre Vermeulen hit a ditch at high speed, and cameraman Wimpy Hobbs was in the right place at the right time to capture a huge accident. Let's take another look in slow motion.
You okay?
Miraculously, both Gary Bertholdt and Andre Vermeulen emerged from the badly damaged Toyota shaken but unhurt. The Bertholdt-Vermeulen accident and a string of retirements or delays for other teams had conspired to elevate reigning Class E champions Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus from 7th to 2nd in the production vehicle category. The pair were having their second outing in the Premier SP class, and a little further down the road, the Ruacon Toyota Hilux crew were to suddenly find themselves leading the production vehicles when Thomas Rundle and John Moore ran into overheating problems in the Baden Tyre Services Nissan Navara. Labuschagne and Erasmus were running just ahead of a private little duel that had developed between Nick and Brian Harper in the Motorite Bat and Swaziland crew John Thompson and Clinton McNamara in a Zarko. Although hampered by an intermittent engine misfire, the Swazi pair were firmly in command of Class P after the retirement of Colin Matthews and Alan Smith.
The set of circumstances that had taken Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus to the front of the production car field also worked for other crews. Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson had made a big move in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara, and Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable in the Ford Racing Ranger had also profited.
Veteran former Class E champions Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux had scooted up the running order. Visser family pride now rested with the Northwest crew after Visser's brother Chris and Jaapie Badenhorst had retired in the second Ford Racing Ranger.
After being rocked by an early puncture, Johan van Staden and James Rousseau were slowly working their way up the special vehicle ladder in the Atlas Copco BAT. The reigning Class P champions made the move into the Premier Class A category this season in the latest Spec 5 BAT, and it has been a steep learning curve for the Pretoria crew. Van Staden and Rousseau have had an adventurous season and were looking for a good result to steady the ship. While Van Staden and Rousseau were moving up the special vehicle ladder, Herman and Richard Sulwald were slipping backwards.
The Sulwald father and son team started the day lying second in the Special Vehicle Championship and needed a good result to keep the momentum going. Instead, it had developed into a nightmare morning which had seen the Sulwald Racing SVR plagued by punctures. By contrast, it had been a trouble-free morning for Louis Weichelt and Francis Boersma in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser. They were comfortably leading Class D, but Weichelt's father, Cliff and Johan Smallberger, had rolled out of contention in the second N1 4x4 Land Cruiser. For Herman and Richard Sulwald, the problem was that they'd run out of spare wheels.
Herman, waar het jy die boekie opgetel? Ek sê terug. Maar ons het nie meer spare nie.
Also on the comeback trail after their early morning confrontation with the ditch were the husband and wife team of Marius and Jelinda Fourie in the PHB BAT. They were now running second to John Thompson and Clinton McNamara in Class P, and after a couple of indifferent results were looking to get their season back on track. Behind the Fouries, the carnage in the SB class had also seen Terence Marsh and George Smallberger make a move up the production vehicle leaderboard in the second of the Regent Racing Nissan Navaras. Marsh and Smallberger were being forced into defending a narrow 8-second cushion over the Micra and XL Toyota Hilux of father and son pair, Hicho and Jaap de Bruin, who had lost time early in the day stuck in the same ditch as Marius and Jelinda Fourie.
Former off-road motorcycle champion Graham McLaughlin and brother Vivian were moving up the special vehicle leaderboard with an impressive performance in the aging Connex Colloy. The Bloemfontein pair were having fun and running ahead of Class D champions Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. After a troubled Friday prologue, Venter and Palmer were trying to close the gap on Class D leaders Louis Weichelt and Francis Boersma, and in turn were being chased by a trio of Class P entries looking to improve their lot.
Leading the Class P runners were Nick Gosler and Andrew Massey in the Men's Health International Zarco, with Sun City 400 overall winners Richard Fuller and Jeff Minnett in hot pursuit in the Atlas Copco BAT, which ran into prologue problems. Chasing the Atlas Copco BAT were Class P Championship leaders Archie Rutherford and Mike Lawrenson, who were not having a happy weekend. And the prologue problems also meant a rearguard action from Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar in the Century Racing CR4.
It was tough going for the four-cylinder vehicles in Class E, but a steady run had kept Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens at the front of the field in the Zizwe Toyota Hilux. Pitter and Claessens were under severe pressure, and moving in on them were teenagers Jason Venter and Vincent van Alleman in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. The youngsters had gradually chipped away at the 2-minute deficit they faced at the start of the day.
At the compulsory 15-minute halt at the end of the first loop, Brett Parker and Vizent van Sale led the special vehicles from Evan Hutchison and Megan Verlack. Leading the production vehicles were Rubicon Racing pair Paki Labuskachny and Rikus Erasmus.
Some late drama only kilometres from the end of the first loop of the race saw Cully and Quinton Sulwald pick up a puncture. That allowed Brett Parker and VZ van Sale and Evan Hutchinson and Megan Verlack to move ahead of the elegant fuel car.
We've been lucky, we haven't had any problems. I see the other guys have had punctures and falling away, getting quite lost. We've been lucky.
We've gone from 7th all the way up to 2nd. First place is about 20 seconds in front of us. And that's by just keeping it on the road and keeping it clean. Everyone's been sitting on the side of the road.
Ons is bietjie versigtig vir papwiele en daar's baie klippe en slote en die merkers is nie baie goed nie, die wind het hulle bietjie afgewaai.
Yeah, we've been having fun. We just got a puncture 15 k's out, so unfortunately we had to stop and change it, so we lost a couple of places. But it's been interesting finding the route, really enjoying it. Good off-road race.
Yeah, we hit that mud hole and the radiator got full of mud. After that, they had a puncture, and now we've got no power steering, so we've got to fix that. There's absolutely no power steering. You can't drive it like that, it's too difficult. Otherwise, we're being fun.
It was very difficult. A lot of dust in the beginning of the morning when we started. We just kept places, but we've noticed one or two guys have broken down on the side. One or two wrong slots, but everyone seems to be making a mistake. Extremely difficult, eh?
I wrong slotted and Nick passed me, so I'm pushing to get back into, back to pass him if I can. And if I can't, then I'll just have to stay behind him today. Otherwise, everything's good and we're having a good time.
It's good. With the second half of this first lap, we went very fast. The dust was the issue this morning. To get through dust, you must be brain dead to go through it. So we backed off. We're going to go for it now. I believe Louis is about 6 minutes ahead of us. We're going to give it everything we can and see if we can catch him.
The race took another twist when Brett Parker and Wiesent van Zyl failed to start the second loop, with the Seasonali Plastics Jimco bursting a radiator at the restart control. It was a reminder that motor racing can be a cruel sport. After starting 7th on the road and 6th in the special vehicle category, Evan Hutchison and Megan Valek suddenly found themselves in the lead in the Motorride Revo.
The turn of events meant that without having to resort to heroics, the experienced Hutchinson and his rookie co-driver now had a 38-second lead over reigning South African champions and current championship leaders, Cully and Quinton Sulwald, in the elegant fuel bat.
The production vehicle category had also been turned upside down with retirements and other delays wreaking havoc among the factory teams and more fancied privateers. In only their second outing in the SP class, reigning Class C champions Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus were leading the field and looking comfortable in the Rubicon Toyota Hilux. Chasing after them were teenager Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable, and for the first time this season, all the pieces were falling into place for the Pietermaritzburg-based Ford crew.
Tranquil scenes are not common during off-road racing, but there was no time to stop and smell the roses for Jannie Visser and Jorks Leroux. The international Toyota Hilux crew were now in a position to bag their third podium finish of the season, but still had some work to do if they were to keep at bay Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the Regent Racing Navara. Whitehouse and Carlson were nearly 7 minutes behind the leaders, but were only a minute or so behind Visser and Leroux, and it was game on.
There had been a change in fortunes for Marius and Jolinda Fourie. After their early morning trials and tribulations, the pair had moved almost unnoticed through the field and took over the Class P lead when John Thompson and Clinton McNamara retired the Zarco with gearbox problems. Terence Marsh and Johan Smallberger had quietly worked their way through the field in the second Region Racing Nissan Navara, with Nick and Ryan Harper moving into the top 5 in the special vehicle category in the Motorride bat. The Harpers were running just over 19 minutes behind the leaders, but in a tight contest, the Motorride crew had about 20 seconds to spare on the Atlas Copco bat of Johan van Staden and James Rousseau.
The father and son pair, Hicho and Jaap de Bruin, were another crew to make a good recovery after early morning problems threatened to ruin their day. Also aided and abetted by troubled times for other teams, the De Bruins had regularly picked up places and moved ahead of Thomas Rundle and Jean Moore when the Baden Racing Nissan Navara pair lost about 6 minutes in the pits repairing power steering damage. Behind them, the McLaughlin brothers were still going like a train in the Koenigs Kaloi, and there was another twist when Louis Weichelt and Francis Boersma fell by the wayside to hand the Class D lead to reigning champions Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux.
The steady Nick Gosler and Andrew Massey were eyeing another Class P podium finish after yet another impressive performance in the Men's Health Zarco. A feature of their season has been consistency, but they were coming under attack from Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar, who had made impressive progress in the Century Racing CR4 after prologue problems saw them start from the back of the field. Corbett and Balzar were on a charge that had taken them past the persistent Naeem Musaji and Rayan Badania in the Maxis Tyre Rack Porter. Also fighting back after starting from the back of the field were overall Sun City 400 winners Richard Fuller and Jeff Millett, who had made up impressive ground in the Atlas Copco bat. Behind Fuller and Minute, the steady Dirk Putter and Koos Claessens were in control of Class E in the Sizwe Toyota Hilux.